Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivamy.
And I am Diana McCullum.
Sweet.
You
There was a moment there where I actually didn't know if you were going to go with your own name. I was like, maybe she's going to give herself a cool, like, I'm plugged into the Matrix
This is
nickname.
my Matrix name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hacker. I'm not very good at Matrix names.
No,
it's me.
straightforward.
Hacker.
Right across the
And they're
place.
like, you gotta leave. I'm like when your like little brother or sister wants to play like sports with you, and they're like, you can't. No, you gotta go.
You gotta go.
I was thinking about putting a new name and being like, New Year, who dis? But it's not gonna be the New Year when this comes out yet. It's close.
No, we're getting closer.
We're getting closer.
We're getting closer. I think it's this. Then next week we're covering Hawkeye. Then New Year? Or is
Hawkeye is in the New Year.
Hawkeye's in the New Year.
Yes, we're so sorry. Who released Hawkeye and Matrix on the same week? So
And Witcher.
And Witcher. So Hawkeye's getting the boot a week late.
Yeah.
Witcher's coming out in our January Patreon.
Yeah.
We're loaded with stuff.
King's Man thought they could sneak in there for some reason like an idiot.
Man, what were you? You just didn't want any money, huh?
Yeah.
We were like,
Spider-Man,
no.
King's Man, Matrix Man, all of the mans.
All of the mans. Yeah, the King's Man was just like, no money. We're good. We're fine.
What? Actually, we're doing okay. Don't worry.
Keep it, Spider-Man. That's your money.
He's a poor boy. He needs it.
You earned that. We are rich Kingsmen.
Yes, we are the King's Men.
We've got dollars to spare.
You're just a little boy. Look at you. And then they pinch his cheek.
Just a little bead of a boy.
And then there's some money for
you
Spider-Man.
gotta buy web fluids.
He's just got a busy life. But this week, we're talking about The Matrix Resurrections, the fourth installment in the Matrix franchise.
Still starting with ours. You guys are really on this.
Still starting with ours.
At least this one I can track. It's like, it's been 20 years. It's a resurrection.
We can track it in the moment. 5 years from now, it becomes completely. I agree with you.
No, I agree with you.
Reloaded and Revolutions are pretty similar, easy to mix up.
Same year.
Resurrections, if you take a second to think about it, you're like, it's been a minute, it comes back. But as the sands of time pass through our fingers, this will become as easy to mix up with the other ones as the rest, I think.
Especially because I think Neo dies in like every single movie. He's constantly resurrected.
Ooh, yes.
He is all about rebirth and coming back.
Yeah.
He'll take a couple bullets.
Dies and resurrects in the first one. In the third one, doesn't resurrect technically.
Until
the second
now.
one, Trinity dies and resurrects.
So there are resurrections.
There are resurrections, or at least a form or part of some resurrection in each film.
All right, and now we're on the full
resurrections.
The full res.
The full res.
High res.
We're talking about The Matrix Resurrections this week on the podcast. For any of you who missed it, if you want to do the deep dive on the Matrix trilogy, we did part one on 3 or 4 weeks ago now. So part one is there, Reloaded is there, and then we covered Revolutions as our Patreon bonus. So that's available over on our Patreon page, which is at patreon.com/From Superheroes. So that is available right now over there if you haven't heard and you want to become a patron and check out our episode on the third Matrix movie.
If you need all of our thoughts on every Matrix movie, they are available.
That's how you Pokemon and collect them all. And
I like that.
As we get into this, so whenever we talk about a new TV show or movie, we give a spoiler-free review. So if you haven't seen it yet, if you're on the fence, not sure if it's worth your time, we're going to give you a spoiler-free review. Then once you hear the theme music, that's when we get into the spoiler-filled section of the podcast. So music, then it's spoilers. But for now, a spoiler-free review. Let's start with the simple question. Diana, did you like it?
I liked it fine. Yeah. Didn't hate it. Didn't love it. I got bored a few times, which is a kind of bad. But, like, it's not a bad movie. And, like, I was never like, bad movie. I was like, this could move along a little bit. It's 2.5 hours. Yeah.
It wasn't the pacing that you necessarily wanted.
Yeah, it's 2.5 hours. It gets a little slow. The first 45 minutes, I was the most intrigued. I was like, ooh, I'm like a little bit anxious, and I'm actually not sure what's going on, and I'm on the edge of my seat here. And then it kind of finds its pace, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And then you kind of get it. The fights are like what they've always been. They're not as groundbreaking. There's nothing as groundbreaking as the original Matrix going on here, but it's fun to revisit, and I had an absolutely fine time. I will have some fun goofs. I will have some nice positives. I think we're going to have a fun time in the spoiler-filled section. And that's the Matrix Resurrections. Andrew, our Matrix friend, how did you feel about Matrix Resurrections?
I think it's good. It's not great, but I think it's good. Like, I think if I was if I was next year or at some point being like, I'm gonna rewatch the Matrix movies, I would rewatch Matrix 1 and this one, and that would be my rewatch.
Ooh, that is
I
a
would
big
skip 2 and
compliment
3.
from you.
And also, like, the way this kind of continues the story, it summarizes 2 and 3 and then moves it forward in a way that you don't really need to watch the second and third one. But I think it's good, not great. It's obviously not as revolutionary as the first one, which really it couldn't be. I wasn't expecting it to be. And only like once every 10 to 20 years is a movie as revolutionary and copied and changed the direction of cinema the way that The Matrix does. So it is Jurassic Park, it is The Matrix, it is very rare pivotal moments in these blockbuster movies that change the way filmmaking is made. So I didn't expect that. It doesn't hit that. And I think that's fine. For the most part, it's still good. I think there's some great performances in here. I think visually it is a beautiful movie. I don't think it has anything to say. It is not, even outside of the aspect of technical filmmaking, which the first movie revolutionized, it's not as intelligent as the first movie. But also, in the past 20 years, I think that people's ability to understand high-minded science fiction has grown. And this feels like it is, if it came out a month after the first Matrix, it would be as revolutionary. But I think audiences' ability to understand conceptual meta-narratives is way more common now. You know, like, I feel like The Good Place as a TV show does loftier goals, ambitions, and ideas than the entire Matrix quadrilogy at this point does. But that's a show that would not have been made in the 90s on NBC. So I think that, like, we've outgrown this being a mind-bending narrative, but it is a small progression of what the first Matrix movie thought a mind-bending narrative was.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think it is trying to say a few things, but nothing like the first movie. Like, this one is much more like, love is important. Got nothing against love.
Yeah.
Not mad about that. It's not groundbreaking in any way. I don't think anyone's like, no, love sucks. No one's fighting against that kind of narrative. And we'll get into it in the spoiler section, but it's trying to say something about reboots, but I'm not sure what.
Right.
And we will discuss that further.
Yes.
But it's very meta.
It dances around saying something.
Does it dance around it or just hold up a little scroll and it's like, I'm saying something?
Yeah, we'll get more into that into the spoiler-filled section. But for the most part, I think it is charming. It looks good. There are some good performances. There is some okay action, and it's good. It's not great, but I had a fine time watching the whole thing.
I'm still going to stay on a fine, but I could be up to a good with analysis.
Sure.
I will actually like up a movie with some analysis. So
And
I can be shifted.
And I'm also on board with the possibility of going down from good to fine.
Oh, no, Matrix, nothing is guaranteed in this world, Matrix.
And also, listeners, as you may know, being a longtime listener, or be finding out as a first-time listener, the scale's made up. There's no 1 to 10 here. Good is, I think, better than fine, and it's not great, and we all know great's better than good. But also, we're playing jazz with the scale here.
Scales. It's our scales?
I
We
could
do
take a
whatever
step
we want with
down.
them.
You could take a step up, but we're going to play jazz here.
I could be a +-2.
Okay.
On this one.
I could also go a +-2. What does the numbers go to? You don't know.
If we're going to bid on like a pro line kind of thing.
And can it be spoiled?
Maybe. I mean, it would be hard.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't one of those ones where you're like, oh, the red wedding happened. Like, someone would have to sit you down and be like, this is what happened in the Matrix Resurrections. You're not going to read a headline and have it ruined for you in an article.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that.
So, like, yeah, someone can tell you what happens, but they gotta tell you what happens.
And I think even then it's, references to previous moments, returning characters or ideas. I think if you've seen the trailer for this movie and you've seen the previous 3 Matrix movies and you kind of made a guess as to what this one's going to be about, you pretty much got it. I don't think there's any way I could kind of shake you from what your loose guess of this film is.
I bet your guess was pretty good.
Your guess was good enough. So I don't think it can really be spoiled.
+-2.
+-2, your guess is good enough
your guess was.
for what the plot of this movie is. So I honestly don't think it can be spoiled. I think it is just it's just a popcorn ride continuation of the first movies.
Yeah, watch it whenever you feel like it. No rush. And it's available on HBO Max at home.
That's nice, too.
I don't often want to plug a service, but I think this is the last at-home release at a time when we really needed one.
Yeah, we'll see if they rethink those at-home releases going forward, because I know things change regionally, but things in Canada are not shaping well.
Not going good.
So
We liked watching it at home.
it was nice watching it at home because we were not going to go to the theater to see it, even if it wasn't available at home. So that's complicated. But yeah, that's our review. It is fine to good. It can't be spoiled. But now, that's just to play it safe on the spoilers. We will warn you that now is where the spoilers come in. Let's get into it. Let's talk about The Matrix Resurrections. All right, so we have seen The Matrix Resurrections. We have had a medium time about it. I am glad that it was just good. Like, my bar for this was so low. Regular listeners of the podcast, you know, I love The Matrix. At the age I was when they were released in theaters, I was very excited for Reloaded and Revolutions, and did not necessarily care for those movies. It was diminishing returns. So going into this, I'm like, oh no, is it going to be? And that was good. That was better than my expectations, and it felt like a soothing balm.
There was no orgasm cakes, even though there was the Merovingian.
Yeah.
There's nothing of the disastrous lows. There's no people off on their own thing. It was like a very watchable rehash of the first Matrix movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally works structurally. I get why people were comparing this to Force Awakens a little bit. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, it's the same thing, but again. And I'm like, oh yeah, it is the same thing, but again. But, you know, first one worked.
Well, once more around the bend, let's do it. Like, I'm down for doing it again. I liked the first one.
It's been 20 years. I still like seeing Keanu Reeves and Carrie Ann Moss kick people in the face.
Absolutely.
Who could get sick of this?
And they continue to be fantastic performers and actors who are giving it their all in this and really do give phenomenal performances. Like, even when I wasn't necessarily with the narrative that we were going on or interested in where we're taking it, Keanu was giving a phenomenal performance, and maybe the most ranged performance we've seen him give as Neo in all of these movies. Mm-hmm. Even though the first Matrix is a better movie, this is a better showcase of what Keanu is capable of. And even though we can unpack this a bit more down the road, but Carrie Ann Moss doesn't have enough screen time, I think with the scenes that she has, she also showcases more range and ability than she has had a chance to show at any other point in the Matrix franchise. So it is a very, very nice film for their talent and their abilities and what they get to play with and do.
I will agree with that. Yeah, I've never seen Neo I really liked, like, before he got his memories back, seeing Keanu being, like, panicked, like, unsure Neo. We've never seen Neo like that. Because even when Neo didn't know what the Matrix was in Matrix 1, he was kind of always absorbing, but never super panicked about it.
Yeah.
This felt like a departure, but understandable. Like, you know, he's been drugged, he's been manipulated for 60 years. He's gonna be a little messed up. So yeah, there's a nice range going on here from both of them. And I will say, as I said, the theme of this one is more like love. This is the most I've ever believed in the love story between Trinity and Neo. And they really sell it just actor-wise. Like, they do in every movie, because even though the writing's never there, like, with, like, kind of dialogue and building on what they mean to each other, just like when they shake hands and there's just like a moment and they just kind of stop and you're like, they are selling the shit out of this, that they are like soulmates.
There is
or at least have a core memory of each other.
There is a quiet longing in every moment that they have together, and the chemistry is palpable. And it works in this way more than it did in the original trilogy, because as we discussed when we talked about those first films, is that those first films, it's meant to be very much a, like, I don't know if it's necessarily said to be this, but I love at first sight, because they have no common interests. They don't share a laugh. They have no bonding moment, really. Like,
they have very little dialogue together.
Like, their only dialogue is like, how much they love each other, but there's no reason that we see for them to love each other. And this is a continuation of that. It doesn't really get to showcase why they love one another. But as two star-crossed lovers who have had their memories of one another robbed, that quiet longing works way better in the narrative. And holy shit, do they sell it as performers. Like, the rest of the movie aside, regardless of the rest of the movie, that scene where they sit down and have coffee is a goddamn masterclass in performing. Where I'm like, the sadness, the sadness and desperation in that moment, the wanting something better but feeling trapped in the life that you have. I can't remember if it was Smith or if it was the analyst who described it as was it fear and what was the other human emotion?
Fear and yearning, I think, or
fear,
longing.
or hope, or
fear and hope. Yeah, you're scared of losing what you have, but you want more.
That scene was the theme of the movie.
Was the epitome of that.
That scene was the epitome of fear and hope. And then on top of fear and hope, thirsty as shit. Like, it was also like a scene where with such unspoken like lust and attraction underneath. It's the type of thing where, like, if I knew one of them and like was in that coffee shop and walked over, was like, "Hey, how's it go?" Immediately I'd be like, "Are you two about to?" Like, there is such a palpable tension. I adore that coffee shop scene. I think that actor-wise, that is everything.
It really did. It was so important for them to finally, after like 4 movies, have like a really full, fleshed out scene together that isn't just like Trinity dying, which happens a lot. Most of their scenes together are Trinity dying in the first 3 movies. You gotta save her all the time. So it's nice to have just like a nice, calm conversation when nothing is on the line, and to really see these people like interact. And the love story does work, because even though in the first 3 I don't feel it because of like this, how the storylines worked out, this one, if you just have like this core memory of I've known this person for years and went through many traumatic things and know I can trust them, because I think trust is such a big important part of love. Mm-hmm. And to have gone through what they went through together, there is an inherent trust there. So even if there's not like we have fun banter or common interests, I think the depth of their trust and experiences really sells me on the love story and the resurrections.
I fully agree with that.
So that's what I really like about this. Performance is great. The ideas are great. The flashes of memory, the star-crossed lovers. I don't normally like love at first sight, but when you've seen the first 3, you're like, no, it's not love at first sight. They know each other.
Yeah, there's a reason for this longing to be there. There's a reason for love at first sight, and it's because it's actually love at second sight, but you don't know that. Whereas the first movie has none of that. It is literally someone who's like, "Hello, I'm Neo," and then Trinity has to say exposition, and then later is like, "The Oracle told me I'd love the one, and you are that, so this is all good enough chemistry for me."
And in a weird way, it kind of makes me think maybe the first Matrix works a little bit better for their love story than I think it does, because in this one, I think it works because I've seen their love story before. But as those movies have said, everything happening has happened before. Neo is like the 18th one. And if in Matrix 1, they have already fallen in love like 5 times before and have a core memory of each other, but that's just never explored, that's cool, and I can get way more on board.
They, in canon, have not, unfortunately.
No,
I
don't
hate
tell
to
me
say.
This. Delete this.
You know what?
The
Never mind.
episode.
Forget what I said.
No, tell me. I mean, because they're
Forget what I
humans
said.
and they're like not machine minds.
Well, I would also say that like the reason that I say for that is to in canon that conversation with the architect in Reloaded. He says, I think this is the 6th iteration of Neo. He's like, this is the 6th iteration, and everyone before you had felt a very general feeling of love towards humanity and the people, but you were the first one to feel it in a specific and individualized manner in the form of Trinity, implying that the previous iterations of Neo loved Morpheus and his crew and Zion and humanity, but did not have a love the way that this. So
damn you, Andrew, and young Andrew's
sorry.
multiple viewings
sorry.
of the earlier Matrix movies. I'm going to ignore all that when I rewatch Matrix 1 and be like, look at them fall in love again for the first time.
That is a better idea.
That's why they were in love immediately. They've done it like 6 times. Well,
Without having to build rapport or share interests or stories or have a nice dinner or a date. That they're just like, oh, we're in love now? And the other one goes, okay, and then they are.
What about this? There were 6 Neos before, you said?
Something like that.
Something like that.
5 or 6.
What if each one was just falling a little bit more in love with Trinity every time? And the 7th one was where it was like, it reached a threshold of like lots of memories coming back. It's like when you get to like the 6th date and you say, I love you. You can't say I love you on the first date.
No, you can't gun-ho, just go right into it.
But you can get there after like 7.
I can mess with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my headcanon.
I like
Matrix headcanons, that's what I got.
I like where your head's at. The first act of this movie.
My favorite part of the movie.
Mine as well.
Excellent.
Mine as well. So they go hard in the meta narrative. So to just kind of give a very brief summary, which I know we don't often do on the podcast, but in case you haven't seen it or
you'll need it,
you need a refresher, and we've only just seen it once, so it's not going to be the most accurate refresher in the world. But Neo is now Thomas Anderson. They've reskinned him so he looks like someone else to everyone else in the world, but he still sees his old self in the mirror. He works at a video game company, and he has made the Matrix movies, but as a trilogy of video games. And in those Matrix games, he created a small module of code that contains Morpheus, and they have now taken him out of the game within the simulation and put him into the Matrix. And now he's getting his memories back of being Neo. And a similar thing, but without the video game stuff for Trinity. She now has the name Tiffany and a family, and the world sees her as something different, even though she sees herself, and she has forgotten who she was. And that's kind of where we're at. But it's all based around this. The first act is all a really fun meta narrative, and it is all like flashes of the original movies as he's remembering himself. These parallel lines where like Smith saying the same lines as Smith from the first movie or having these similar moments. And I think that it really ups the pace and the momentum and the fun and charm while mining nostalgia, but in a way that doesn't feel cheap or advantageous. I'm actually on board for the meta narrative for the most part.
For the most part, I'm on board. I would say overall, I could do with maybe 30% less flashes to the old movies. It's a little too much at points. There's like 3 scenes in a row with Morpheus with like, they project it on the wall, they put that on the little TV. There's too much. There is too much overall for me, but I do like it in flashes because it actually does work as a narrative device really well. It is Neo seeing flashes of his life. It is a reminder for people who didn't rewatch the trilogy before they saw this one, because it's been like 20 years.
Right.
So it's a nice, like, in case you don't remember, Trinity and Neo both died at the end of 3. Like, here you go, just so you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely works. It's frenetic. The way that they filmed it with, like, all the lines by the characters, but every, like, second word, they're on a different part of the room on a different day, but they're having conversations and they're constantly changing, and the amount of filming they must have had to do really blows my mind. Yeah, this montage of Thomas Anderson's life was actually probably my favorite part. I don't know what the song that was playing was, the one from the trailer, and it was a really cool song to go with this whole montage of like decided to take the blue pill over and over again and feeling something's wrong and cracking.
And he's been in there for, I mean, I guess they spent some years rebuilding his body. And then reinserted him into the Matrix. So I don't know if it's been the full 60 years, but I think the implication of that is that he has been reliving the same decade or over and over and over again.
Ah, that's what's happening.
I think is the implication. Yes.
All right, I can get behind that.
We're recording this just after it came out. We've only seen it once.
We haven't read any breakdowns or deep dive analyses.
Yeah.
This
so
is a
be
first,
patient with us.
This is a first pass review, guys.
If you're listening to this in the future,
hope things are better.
Oh,
shit. Hope things haven't gone terribly wrong, future.
So Matrix 5, Matrix Rewind just came out, or whatever they call Matrix.
Called Rewind.
Shit. Whatever they call it, came out. And you're like, hey, I'm going to go back and listen to their Resurrections episode. And here you are in the year 2023. I hope things are better then. And you're listening to this, you're like, wow, they got it way up. Please be patient. We just saw this bad boy.
We haven't looked at all the layers. Mm-hmm. It might be brilliant. So yes, I like that. I was surprised you skipped over the entire beginning with Morpheus, though, which I think is much more interesting.
Really? That like he is within a game himself, running a
just found-
simulation over and over again?
Not so much that he was in a simulation, but that whole sequence was so interesting. I did not know what was happening, and I found it fun, and I really liked the performance. I love Jessica Henwick in this. She's very, very good.
Phenomenal job. Phenomenal actor.
It's a very fun entry into the new movie where you're kind of like, oh, it's Matrix 1, but what is happening? Because, you watch the trailer and you're like, Neo's in the Matrix, probably. But you watch this and you're like, what is happening? And I was very engaged.
Before it does that pull out to the, like, this is a video game within the
like
simulation.
Jessica Henwick and I think she's named Bugs.
Bugs,
and Morpheus, like, figuring out who each other are and hugging and him being like, I'm Morpheus, and them helping each other. This was a point where I was like, oh, this might have, like, cool, deep stuff. Like, I don't know what's happening right now. This is interesting. I like it. I love going into the key shop, and that's when you open rooms, like the Keymaster in 3? 2?
When was the Keymaster? The Keymaster was 2.
Either way, going into a key shop was just like a more subtle reference than the rest of this movie does.
Yeah.
No flashbacks to a guy with keys when you're in the key shop. They're just like, you remember keys, open doors. We're just gonna do that. So yeah, I really, really liked this whole opening. And they use it through the whole movie, but in the opening they also do I think the biggest change they made, and the one I like the most, is that you can see the operator in the Matrix. I love this.
Interesting.
I'm
going to disagree with you on that, but I would
Matrix.
love to hear. I want to hear more. Tell me more.
I really like the idea because when you see the operators in front of their computers and they see all the code, they say that they can see everything. So when you pop him in, you're like, yeah, he can see everything. This is what he sees when he reads the code. And I think it's not a more interesting, but definitely a new way of showing the operator instead of just cutting back to the ship over and over again. He's part of the scene. He's integrated. You can have actors on the same set, which is much better for banter and dialogue. Loved operator in the Matrix, but not in the Matrix. He can't change anything, but he can see it all. He can help you. He can point at things. Love this.
I would say to canonize it, I think that the reason is that he has that holographic eyepiece, which is something that the other operators never had. The other operators were looking at code, and he's got this little like Google Glass, like hollow eye thing. So he's actually seeing it is meant to be the implication. It's a technique that could work for me, and there's a moment or two where it does. I think what bothers me is that sometimes they just double dip and it's just a little inefficient, where they will cut back to him in the chair and he'll be like, oh no, look over there, there's 3 of them. And then it cuts to him in the world and he's like, the 3 of them right over there. And I'm like, but the fact that you've made it, and it's not that complicated an idea, but maybe they just didn't have faith that the audience would get it. But the fact that they are double dipping says that they didn't have faith the audience would get it, and now it's just wasting twice as much screen time to constantly reiterate a simple and not plot relevant idea. So I think maybe just that bothered me. It might have been how they executed it more than the idea itself, because I agree with you. Any scenario where a person is on set with the other actors and not sitting in a chair alone doing I gotta get me one of those.
You hate that.
And I hate that. This is better, and conceptually I'm on board with it, and I just didn't like the execution of it.
Oh, I was absolutely fine with the execution. I think, especially because early on he was like in the Matrix a lot. I found once you got more than like 3 people in the Matrix, he kind of disappeared.
Right.
Like when the big crowd went to get Trinity out, I don't think he even popped in at all. They were like, there's already 18 people on set today. Mm-hmm. We're not pulling you in, operator. Sorry, you're on base.
We're good, yeah.
We're good. We got 15
We got enough people to deliver exposition. We don't need you today.
We got fight scenes. We got people whose names we haven't even said yet.
Yeah.
We got things to do.
So the one criticism that I do have about this first act, and I think the first act is what works the best. I like the meta-narrative referencing the Matrix as a video game series and the self-referential aspects. I like we're projecting the Morpheus scene onto the wall. I like the new Morpheus turning on a TV, showing the old Morpheus turning on a TV. I like this self-referential meta-narrative. Where I really hate it, and I mean hard hate it, is when they reference how difficult it is to make a 4th thing. I loathe it. It is so self-aggrandizing as a creator to be like, do you know how hard writing is? And studios are bad. So this whole like the meta joke of like when Neo is sitting down with what turns out to be Smith, who's his boss at the video game company, and he's like, our parent company, Warner Brothers, says we have to make another one because they've got to do the cash grab of cashing in on nostalgia. I'm like, first of all, Wachowski, you wrote that line of dialogue. You didn't have to do this. There is no report that Warner Brothers was going to do it without you and like stomp on your grave of this beautiful trilogy you made, even though you made one good movie. Like this whole like, and Warner Brothers are the villain. I didn't even want to be here today. Be like, no, you wanted the dump truck of money. If you wanted to do the meta narrative, have Neo go in and be like, the money from those 3 games are drying up. I want more. And have his boss be like, Warner Brothers would also fucking love more money.
We would love if you did Matrix
And
4.
all 5 of them can jump up and down and go, wee, as they all are happy with how much money they're about to make. Because no one put a gun to your head and made you make this movie. So, like, I get it's easy to shit on the studios, and there's lots of reasons and very legitimate reasons to shit on movie studios, but this is dumb and bad. And then the meta narrative of like, is it just guns? Pew pew pew. What do the people want? Fans are dumb. Like, but I'm watching this right now. Fuck you too. Why are you like this?
It gets aggressive for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The movie is mad it got made. Like,
and mad at me for liking it, wanting it, and watching it.
Yeah, because the lines are so aggressive. Yeah, there's the line of WB is making us because they're going to make it without us if we don't say yes. And then Keanu's like, don't our contracts not allow that? Like, you would think that. I'm like, but Warner Brothers let you keep these lines in, which makes me think these aren't true things at all.
You clearly had Final Cut. They allowed you to make Jupiter Ascending and Speed Racer. No one's singing no to you in any regard.
Yeah, and then all the stuff about what made the first movie great, I actually didn't mind. That didn't seem like it was towards the fans. That really felt like which Wachowski is this? Lily?
I think it's Lily.
Lily? Apologies. I have cast open, not director.
Lana, sorry, not Lily.
It is Lana. Sorry.
Lily's the one who stayed home. Lana.
Okay, Lana. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Lana really was genuinely trying to figure out like what was good about the first one. Like it wasn't a criticism of the fans. That really felt like, was it the meta narrative? Was it the mind bending stuff?
Yeah.
Was it just bullet time?
Right.
Was it just bullet time? And then, yeah, the movie kind of wants to say reboots are bad, but this is, unless they're revolutionary, but this is a reboot that is not revolutionary. It's fine to good, plus or minus 2, but...
And it is self-aware to a certain degree in the sense that it sets the expectation low because they have the line of like, bullet time, everything changed. Like you changed the way everyone views this art form. No one's going to do it the same. So all you need to do is change everything again. And that's a funny line. And I think that's something you can get away with in a comedy. I think the good example of this is Lord and Miller in 22 Jump Street. And the Jump Street movies are criminally undervalued. But in 22 Jump Street, Nick Offerman as the police sergeant has a line of dialogue where he's like, we're bringing back the Jump Street program and now you got more funding. I don't know why the higher-ups think that if you just throw more money at it, it's going to be better. More money will be better. More guns and explosions will be better. That's not how any of the... And it has this meta moment. And that's the kind of thing where I'm like, I think that a lot of media has grown past meta narrative being mind-bending, which I was talking about, I think, in the spoiler-free section. But... it's not quite as mind-bending and it's not as clever as it thinks. And talking about how difficult it is to do is really boring and just something I always hate in media, whether it's like a film like Adaptation or a show like Californication or like, and it's usually...
Californication?
That was, the David Duchovny.
What a pull.
But I'm trying to think
Who's
of like...
even thought of that show?
I just immediately go to narratives where it is a writer who is so upset about how hard writing is. And there's just something so masturbatory about that, about a writer selling a movie studio on how hard it is to be a writer, or just having any line of dialogue to be like, do you even know how difficult my job is? And then that gets made. It's like, no, just make the thing.
Yeah.
Just make the thing.
I will throw out the show Castle was about how fun and easy it was to be a writer. And it was on for like 11 years and people loved Castle.
Yeah, solid.
And that's the right perspective on writing.
Yeah.
Because I write things and I think it's fun, or I wouldn't write things.
Yeah.
No one is like, I need to write things or my business goes under. Actually, maybe the Wachowskis. Yeah, you're the only ones.
Right.
But yeah, it's not fun. It doesn't make me want to
And
do you need help on your Patreon, Wachowskis? Like, what are your goals here? I'm being like, it was so hard to write 4 after 20 years.
And I understand that this is Lana's personal lived experience, but it is not relatable. How do you make a return to the most profitable and revolutionary thing ever made that, frankly, if you retired tomorrow, people would put it on your gravestone and people would remember you as an absolute legend? How do you follow that up? I find this hard. That is not a relatable tale. No one cares.
No, the nice version of that is I found it hard and I overcame it. And the movie's out, so
Right.
I guess she did. But
Right.
like what was that process? Like, what did you come up with? Because when they got to the part of the movie where they're like, bullet time was the revolutionary part, and that's what was revolutionary, I was like, so what's this movie going to do that's revolutionary? And I kept waiting for this movie to try to throw something at us that might be not even revolutionary, but just something I haven't seen before. And I feel like the closest they could come up with was that NPH can do like Flash time. But I'm like, I've seen the Flash and Quicksilver do this 8 times already.
Yeah.
And I've seen them do it, like, this isn't bad at all, but like Flash and Quicksilver do it better.
I think that is yet another example of, if this movie came out 6 months after the first movie, it's revolutionary.
Oh, would have crushed. I mean, if you beat the Quicksilver quick time from like X4, whatever X it was.
But in terms of like filmmaking, narrative, science fiction concepts, and everything, just like the world and audiences as a whole have grown past this.
Yeah,
I would say.
we've seen tons of super speed times. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've seen the best of it. We've seen the worst of it. So yeah, and then nothing else came up, and I was like, oh, that was it. You didn't. The only other thing that seemed even mildly like new was robots being like, or computer programs
The bot
being
mode
like,
or
sentience or sentence or.
Oh yeah. I forget the word they use.
It
But
started with sen.
it was yeah. It was sentience. No, it wasn't
I
sentience.
feel like it was sentence. I think they took the I out.
Now, whatever they call it.
Guys, we just
They're
watched
sentient.
it.
We just watched it seconds ago. God, the Warner Brothers line though.
The
where it's
Warner
like,
Brothers line was bad.
You have to make it, and clearly that is a meta narrative about this. But it's like, you don't, and Lily didn't. But like this implication that it's like it literally was impossible to walk away and not make it. It's like your sister did. So clearly it's if Neo had like a sibling who was like, "Hello, I'm Neo 2." I don't know why Neo 2 is also named that, but it's like, and I won't make the game, and then comfortably lived out a normal life. That would be similar.
Hugo Weaving, I think, said no. Morpheus wasn't invited. Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah.
Rude. I get kind of why, story-wise.
It works in the narrative.
It works in the narrative.
Now, so I didn't like the referencing of how difficult it is to make and that they have to make it, but I did like the nostalgia factor and paralleling it with the original movies. But I think it is an awkward amount of time that they do it for. That this first act, I think, is peppy, it's paced well, but it is simultaneously this meta-narrative or self-referential thing. It goes on either too long or not long enough, where if it was something that this storytelling format was used beginning to end, the entire movie, it would be like, that's the movie. This is the meta-tale, self-referential narrative movie. Or if it was just like a little bit off the beginning or maybe 2 scenes, but it's simultaneously too much and not enough.
Yeah,
even though I like it a lot.
They come in with the shots from the old movies, the self-referential, and they also come in with this new idea of like the reflections aren't right.
Yeah, I like that.
And you're like wondering, what's that mean this whole time? I'm like, because I'm thinking like crazy things. I'm like, are these Neo's previous incarnations that we're seeing? Like, is that who he looks like right now? Is that what other people see? Like, what are these shots? And then as soon as they explain it, it's gone. And then as soon as he leaves the Matrix and enters the real world, there's very few flashes anymore. So it's kind of like the first 45 minutes is almost an entirely different film. Yeah, once he...
A better film, in my opinion.
I agree, a better film. Because once he reaches the real world, the movie gets to be a bit of a slog until he kind of goes back in for Trinity again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because once he gets to New Zion, Io.
Believe, yeah.
Once he gets to Io, it's pretty slow paced. It's a lot of like exposition. This is what happened to Zion. This is what happened to the machines, and none of it really matters. And now Jessica
It's
Henwick,
nice world building.
It's fine world building that has no consequences and doesn't affect anything. Like, he's going back for Trinity no matter what's happening. And it's not pushed by anything.
I think maybe
There's no time frames. There's no limits. There's no urgency. I don't care for any of this.
I think maybe I have a little bit more warmth towards that middle IO section just because that tells a better conclusion to the original trilogy than the original trilogy.
I do like a little closure.
I think that maybe it filled a void, even though I agree with you, it's a slower pace and it doesn't necessarily match the first 45 minutes of the movie, and I like the first 45 minutes better. But I do like that it fills like a void in my heart that that Revolutions left.
Oh no, your heart void.
Where like with Revolutions, I'm like, well then what the fuck does so you died, but did they tell anyone, or like as we talked about on our Revolutions episode, which is the Patreon bonus, but it filled a lot of gaps where I'm like, oh, that actually is a nice a nice ending and a nice final end. Like I like that.
I like the closure. I will give you that. And I would like it a lot more if it tied in, though, with the rest of what's happening. Like, the machines go to war for more power. I'm like, okay, so why do we need to get Trinity out? Like, it's not connected.
Right.
We just miss her. We think it'd be nice if she
was
here.
It's just love.
It's just love.
It doesn't have anything to do with Io. It's just love.
Nothing to do with Io, nothing to do with the peace treaty, nothing to do with war. I don't even know if they're at war anymore. Like, is this place hidden or not? Like, sometimes they're like, we have a peace treaty, don't even worry about it. And sometimes they're like, we gotta stay hidden. You can't go, Neo, because we're staying hidden. And I can't get a vibe for what's going on in the world right now.
I get that.
And I don't like that. And I would like to know why we're urgently doing things, why Neo has to break out immediately and go back to save Trinity instead of, like, coming up with a plan, waiting a few days. It's been 60 years. She's probably fine.
I see what
for
you're
a little
saying.
bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't like a lack of urgency.
Yeah, there is no ticking clock for sure.
No
but I liked some of the world building. I like the idea that there was a civil war amongst the machines, which actually
I like that a lot, and I wanted more of it.
And I think that's a brilliant concept to be like, as they gain sentience and now there is not equal resources among them, of course they would war amongst themselves for resources as human bodies shut down and some places are losing their power factories and other aren't. Like, that's actually a really clever progression of what these robots have grown into in terms of their intelligence and their conscience and their wants and desires.
Yeah, because we have seen, like, throughout the entire thing that the program seemed to be slowly building more sentience and factions. I mean, the Architect and the Oracle were slightly at odds. Agent Smith eventually completely breaks off on his own and enters the real world way differently than the other programs do. Like, they
even
are
rogue
developing
programs like the Merovingian and stuff like that. Like, there are agents of chaos.
Yeah.
And there are kind ones that are now switching over, but it is much like human life. Their choices, their decisions, their morality can go any number of directions. So, of course, it would be chaotic, and there is a potential for war and infighting.
Yeah, I think it made a lot of sense, and it was a really good progression of where the Matrix has been going, and very unexplored.
Yeah.
Yeah, just really briefly, like, they fought each other, and I was like, oh, cool. Doesn't matter. Don't even worry about it, though. It's like, oh shit, is there gonna be an Animatrix about the wars, please? I will watch Animatrix 2 about the machines fighting each other.
God.
I'm just throwing that out there, Wachowskis. If you want to yell at Warner Brothers again about how you don't want to do anything, but you actually do secretly want some more money, and maybe you'll do something.
Maybe. They'll never tell.
Animatrix about the machine war and how it affects the humans and why they made another world. I'm all for it. I was way more interested in this.
How do you feel about Jada Pinkett Smith?
I don't mind her in any way. I have one huge question about Jada Pinkett Smith. Jada Pinkett Smith, it's been 60 years, so she's older. I get it.
Yeah.
I know
old
she spent
person makeup to her.
I know she spent 5 hours in old person makeup before.
Oh, you saw like a behind the scenes thing? Or?
She complained. She was like 5 hours.
Oh.
Not like complain.
Right,
but, you're doing an interview and they're like, you're in old person makeup.
Right. You goof complain.
I cannot understand why, when we go into the Matrix with Jada Pinkett Smith, she's still 90 years old. It takes 5 hours to put the makeup on. Your Matrix self is whatever you want to look like.
Sure.
Neo's got his hair back. He's got his duster. He doesn't look the same. Jada Pinkett Smith, Niobe, standing right next to him. She's like, I'm still 80 and wrinkly and my hip hurts. I'm like, but you're in the Matrix right now. Why wouldn't you
just be... And also...
Why wouldn't you be running off walls and being like, oh, good, I'm young again. Woo!
If this was a sequel that was 60 years after the original Matrix, like the Matrix... Let's say the Matrix came out in the 60s. It was...
Okay.
The Matrix came out at the time of, like, Star Wars.
Okay.
And it was just like, and now they're remaking it, and Jada Pinkett comes back, or a character of that age comes back. I would get it. I'd be like, that is an old person. They just have to be old inside the computer. But Jada just could be young.
Jada looks great.
She looks perfect.
Have you guys seen Jada
She's
Pinkett
timeless.
Smith?
She
She's
could
hot
just be
as
there.
Hell, I mean, Gotham's been a few years now, but she looked amazing on Gotham.
Yes.
She would look incredible inside. You've got so much makeup on her.
Niobe, just be banging.
It would be great. Like Neo just turns to her like the second they go in the Matrix. He's like, "Oh, there you are." Just like more familiar to me. She'd have cool sunglasses on. You can't go into the Matrix and not put on sunglasses. That's illegal. That's illegal.
That is illegal. That does
Arrest
seem illegal.
Jada Pinkett Smith immediately.
Yes, yeah. And Jada Pinkett Smith in the old person makeup, I will say, hair and makeup department did a great job. She looks phenomenal. Like, it doesn't look like old people makeup. It looks as good as you can get aging up a person with makeup to get. Looks
Especially
fantastic.
in like a apocalypse survivor kind of world, not like I'm in like the regular human world aging.
Yeah. And the one thing that bothered me though is that I'm like, Jada, you were so close. She gives a great performance, and I feel like she's got an older person's like head movement and like kind of a stiffer neck. But her hips are fucking like salsa dancing. But it's just the kind of thing that like she would walk towards Neo and it would be like an old lady, like a hunch, and the shoulders would crinkle. But then like when the camera was in a wide angle, just like the feet were shuffling, just like she just didn't have it in her full body. It felt like
she thought she was in a close up.
It felt like she could just do the splits and start dancing at any moment. And yeah, it just felt like the shoulders up were old and everything else was just ready to pop off at any given moment.
I didn't notice. Now I gotta rewatch the movie to watch the bottom half of
the
Jada
bottom
Pinkett
half
Smith's
of
body.
It's always ready to pop off when you're the bottom half of Jada Pinkett Smith.
But I will say, as much as I joke, they did choose to put her in the makeup in the Matrix. And that actually feels like a choice you have to make because the makeup takes so long.
I would argue...
I was going to make a point. That I actually do kind of wonder if this is just meant to say her sense of self is so strong, she doesn't need to improve herself in the Matrix. Like, she is like, I know who I am. I don't need to be any different in the Matrix than who I am outside. And I don't know if that's what was intended, but I actually do kind of want to take that as like, that's why she's the leader of these people. She doesn't go into the Matrix and be like, oh, I wish my skin was still smooth. She's like, I'm me. Let's talk. And that's kind of like my thesis of maybe why they did it.
I like that. That's a fun, empowering version of it. My interpretation of it, less empowering, unfortunately, but it's still like, it's not empowering. But I think of it as, now the clothing and hair, maybe she just doesn't give a shit. I got no excuse. I got no reason for the clothing and hair. But it's supposed to be that this is a digital projection of your mental self. It is how you see yourself. Mm-hmm. Which is why when you come out of the Matrix into the real world and plug back in, the Matrix version of you doesn't have the neck plugs and it doesn't have a shaved head because you just came out of a cocoon. It is how you spent most of your life looking in the mirror and seeing yourself. And it's why that Neo's projection when he goes back in is not of the fake skin that they put him in. It's what he saw in the mirror the whole time. But it's still like an aged Keanu. It's still an aged Trinity. And I think with Niobe, it's just as she got older, it happened slowly and eventually. And you look at yourself in a mirror, and eventually, like when you close your eyes, that's how you picture yourself. Like you remember how you looked when you were younger. But it's like, if I have a dream tonight, I in that dream look like I do today. I don't look like how I did when I was 20 unless
don't
it's a
look
time
20.
travel dream or something weird. So I think that is just how your brain perceives yourself when it's done slowly over time. And some small aesthetic things like hair or clothing changes. But I think how your brain interprets your body, it is based on like what you would see slowly change in the mirror every day over 60 years.
I like that. And I agree with that. But it brings up kind of more questions about younger people for me then. Because I'm like, Jessica Henwick sees herself as this like blue-haired girl.
Sure.
But I'm like, do you guys even have hair dye in IO? Like, when have you ever seen yourself with blue hair? Because that to me tells me that your Matrix self is like what you want to look like. I want to have sunglasses and a little slice in my hair, but I don't have the resources here in IO or Zion or wherever I live.
Sure.
So like that tells me people want to see their ideal selves, and I just don't feel like that's what Niobe would see. So it just feels like a conflict.
Yeah, I don't think anyone changes physically though. I know like the original concept for Switch in the first one was supposed to be like a trans character. I mean, you just said they get rid of all
their body implants.
I guess you do change physically in some regard in that way, but that. Yeah, that's a tough one. That is a tough one.
Yeah. And I will say, I am jealous of everyone who goes into the Matrix because they all choose to wear fun sunglasses.
Yes.
Every single one. And they all come up with new sunglasses every single movie.
Revolutionary sunglasses.
And I sincerely mean this. It's going to be in a joking tone. I wish I had the confidence to wear fun sunglasses.
Oh, like ones where it's like, these don't even make sense?
I wish I was that person. I would love to wear sunglasses with a bar on them that makes it hard to see out of the sunglasses.
Bugs' glasses make it hard
How
to see.
can she possibly see well?
It's not possible.
I mean, it's the Matrix, so who cares? But the big bar was very much, I was like, is this what LeVar Burton felt like when he was wearing his visor on Star Trek Next Generation? Like, just barely able to see what's happening, probably. But they looked cool. And I wish, and even there's other ones, there's the Morpheus ones. One guy's got these like nice purple ones. I just wish I could wear fun sunglasses. It's a dream of mine.
I'm going to have to get you fun sunglasses.
But would I have the confidence to wear them, Andrew?
I cannot.
They can't just be around the house. I must wear them outside confidently and look like a cool person.
I can do a lot. I can boost your confidence, definitely.
Okay.
I think like giving you nice, cool, but different sunglasses, some nice compliments, I can boost you. But once you're out in the world on your own, it is up to you then.
Actually,
Godspeed, it's on you.
A look into our relationship here. If you gave them to me and I didn't buy them myself, that would be all I needed.
You would believe.
I believe in you like Morpheus believed in Neo. If
Wow.
you gave me the glasses and you said these are cool, I would wear them every day.
Huh.
Don't abuse this power.
I won't.
Do not abuse this power.
I won't. And they still would need to be practical. You can't have a bar across the front of them.
I don't want a bar.
Bugs,
I do
you
like
can't
some
do that.
circly Daredevil stuff. I like circly ones.
Yeah, I see what you're
and
saying
it's
there.
hard to
I
pull
see what
off.
it takes a very specific
It
face
was
shape.
a real early 90s kind of thing we did.
Yeah.
But I do like circly ones. That's my feeling. And I'm jealous of everyone in the Matrix who gets to wear cool sunglasses.
Interesting. There is a lot of fun
genuine
sunglasses.
thing
They're
I
pretty
feel.
cool. They're pretty cool.
They've had to come up with new fun sunglasses. Even NPH has like just regular reading glasses with really nice big blue rims.
Yeah, yeah, he has interesting reading glasses. I like it.
Weird color choices happened in this because I felt like NPH's big blue rims were like a hint because you take the blue pill, he's wearing blue glasses. This is the control section.
He's giving the blue pill, yeah.
But Jessica Henwick's hair was also bright blue. And I was like, this seems like a bad idea. Why aren't we color coding the sides?
Yeah, I think that it is just for style and just a visual pop, and I don't think that they're doing color motifs in this movie. And that is actually one thing that this movie does lack, is that the visuals, while I think there are a lot of shots that are beautiful in this movie, I think like the silhouette of Neo walking through the lit door onto the train is gorgeous. Even just some of the natural lighting, like that coffee scene between him and Trinity, like the lighting is gorgeous and beautiful. There's a lot of good looking stuff in this movie to really adore. I'm hit and miss on the kind of like the blurry wrong frame rate that they give Neil Patrick Harris when he does the speed time, but that's kind of a stylistic decision. I think there is a lot of stuff in this movie that looks good, but it does not have the color themes that the original Matrix or the original Matrix movies do. Even in the sense that, like, those original Matrix movies, anything that's in the Matrix uses a green tint. It uses the same color tint as the computer programming. So it's green. It's green heavy in terms of its coloring in the Matrix, and it's blue heavy in terms of its coloring in Zion in the real world. And this one doesn't follow those color themes. So I just think that it doesn't quite have the thought, but without that thematic thought into the color, it's just like what looks good in this frame right now. And that is Jessica Chenwick's blue hair or like whatever it might be. So it is without theme, aesthetically pleasing visual elements.
I get what you're saying. And I wonder if that's what like each of the directors kind of brought that is missing.
Ooh, okay.
Like, was Lily in charge of color palette?
Right. Lana being like, blue hair would look awesome, but Lily has to be like, actually...
No, it should be red because
we gotta flip that with the villain.
She's with the red pill side. So you don't want her to be sided with the blue pill side. It's going to read wrong. Or just any other color that isn't blue or red, maybe. Something like that. Because I also feel like what this movie is hugely missing, which like I genuinely feel is... This movie, at its core, I think, is a story about love. It's a love story. It's an action movie, but it's a love story. It's the Neo Trinity love story, and I like that. I actually think that's nice. I like a love story. I like a soulmate love story. We've already discussed that. I like this, but this is a very oddly loveless and sexless film, especially compared to whichever one had orgy rave party.
That was 3. Was that 3?
2 or 3. And then,
2 or 3, yeah.
And then the Wachowskis also did Sense8, which was very sexual, very much about love and connection, but also like actual sex scenes. And this movie seems very devoid of all of that. Like, for all the characters we introduced, I don't know anyone who is together or in love or cares about each other. I think 2 of them were brother and sister. I think.
Which 2?
I think the girl with too many little brackets in her hair.
Okay.
And the guy who was a Neo specialist.
Oh, interesting.
I think.
Maybe. I never got that impression, but I also didn't not get that impression.
Yeah, but like I was just very surprised for a movie like this to be like, we are a love story and we're about love. No one in this movie loves each other except Trinity and Neo, who have a very like sexless soulmate kind of love.
Yeah.
It felt sincerely missing. Like for like no one else to even be like have kind of like a close relationship in the real world or a sexual relationship. There's very few connections in this film.
Yeah, there's no other romantic relationship.
No, there's not a single one.
Yeah. Interesting. I hadn't really thought about it. There's no parallel. There's
no
no
one,
second generation Trinity and Neo. There's no
one who can be like Jessica Henwick maybe would be like, of course we're going to go save her. I know what it's like to be in love, or I am in love. Like no one else even discusses love or what it means or that it matters. Like even Niobe talking about Morpheus. Like I'm like,
right.
Did you end up with Morpheus? Did you dump the other guy? Like, did you love Morpheus? And she's just like, he was the chancellor for a while. Moving on the tour. And I'm like, how do you feel about the fact that Morpheus has clearly died?
Yeah, we did date. Then I was with Locke during the battle. Then we danced at the end of that battle. And then...
Morpheus died. ...
Maybe I'm in a relationship with this woman in this scene, but also it is undefined parameters between the two of us.
That also, I was like, that could be a sister or a girlfriend. And I'm cool with either one, but it was undefined.
Undefined, yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised how... So speaking of like which director does which, I think the one who does the sex stuff is not here.
Yeah. Lily is hornier is what you're saying.
Lily is the horny director.
Lily is hornier. Yeah, that's entirely possible. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it from that perspective, but you're right. It is a little bit sexless. I don't know. There is part of me that's like, is that a studio thing? Is it a writer-director thing?
I mean, it is kind of more like the first one, but like as a director duo, like Sense8 is incredibly sexual. Even Cloud Atlas has some sex moments. Like, this feels very much like I'm the director who doesn't do the sex scenes.
Right. Immediately where my brain goes to be like, is it an ageist thing to be like, they're older in this one and old people don't fuck?
You could have made the young people fuck. Jessica Henwick's a young hottie.
That is true. There is young hotties here, too.
There's young hotties. You got you brought like 3 cast members from Sense8 back.
You're right. There are young hotties. Yeah, I got no excuse then. I got no excuse why it's not hornier.
For a movie about love, even if it's not horny, I want more love.
Okay.
I love love.
Yeah, I get that. And I'm with you that I do like... I do like the romantic story of this, and it's clean and it is simple. And for a movie that may not necessarily have a lot to say, and while that is partially going to be a criticism of mine, that it doesn't have as much to say as the first one, or as it has the potential to say, but it is clean and simple, and that does function. It makes it a very straight A to B storyline that I'm on board with, and it allows performers to shine a little bit more, even though Carrie-Anne Moss doesn't get the amount of scenes she should get.
Huge negative on me is she does not get enough to do, which is weird because she is such a pivotal third act part. I mean, this is such a plus and negative for me. Should we get into the ending a bit more then?
Sure, let's lay it on.
Because this whole thing, which is a thing that I think both of us wanted in the first Matrix, was both of our change, was that Neo's not the one. We wanted all three of them to be the one. Or that's your big change, I'm sorry. You wanted all three of them to be the one. But at least here, my big thing was I was like, Trinity's the first one to kill an agent. She was the first one to ever do it, but Neo was the one, and it didn't make any sense to me. So I love that Trinity is like a one. One of the ones. I don't know how we're going to frame this now. One of two.
Sure. Yeah.
She's half a one.
She's a modifier. She is the one. She is something.
An integrator. Yeah. I don't know what she is. Integer is the word I wanted. But yeah, I love that she is integral and powerful and just as good as Neo. She's like upped herself. It's like when Gandalf fought the Balrog and he's like, I'm the White Wizard now. She totally got some XP. I love it. I adore it. She can fly. I think it's great. But it's so weird to be like, she's more powerful than Neo or equally powerful, and she's got no screen time. And it's because they go to Zion in the real world for so long, but they really needed more for her to do. Because even when he's going through his like huge montage of his life, she has like that one coffee shop scene, and that's it.
Yeah.
They really needed to find a way to integrate her into the story more.
100%, especially when that is... Even though like this is a story of love, it is also a story about her being as much a part of the revolution as Neo was, and she's not as much a part of the storytelling of the revolution as Neo is. So that is an upsetting thing where it's like you have a dissonance happening here between your story and how you're telling it. And the story says this person is equal to, if not more than, but definitely equal to, and as people who are in love, as a couple, they are partners. They are equals in everything. Don't worry about her. She's not around for most of this. But she is an equal, and we are sure that she is an equal somewhere else. Not here, but she's an equal. She's around, and she's an equal.
It is vital we get her out of the Matrix, but we won't speak to her or ask her about her day or find out how she's been doing in the Matrix. Yeah. If they had even given her like a parallel montage while Keanu's montage is happening of like what his daily life in the Matrix is. Because I really do like seeing the Matrix from the point of view of someone in the Matrix for a long period of time. Like in the first Matrix movie, we only see Neo for like 3 scenes in the Matrix. He gets yelled at by his boss. He goes to the club. He gets interrogated by the Smiths, but then he's out of the Matrix pretty quick. I liked seeing like what life is like in the Matrix and how you choose to stay and how you choose to go and all this. But we only saw it from Neo, and there's no reason why we couldn't have just cut some middle stuff in Zion, AO, wherever we are, and just had a little bit more Trinity, who is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And would feel more vital that way.
Absolutely.
Like if the whole Matrix is relying on these two not seeing each other but yearning for each other, like they should be equally montaged.
100%. They should be equals.
Well, excellent. I'm glad we agree. I'm yelling at you for no reason.
I'm agreeing.
I will stop. I'd like to discuss, but I've won.
You've won this round.
Excellent.
You've won again,
this
you
round.
son of a bitch. But every moment that she is there is sincerely electric. I like seeing her more powerful at the end. I think it works. I'm just a big fan of Carrie-Anne Moss. I would have liked to have seen her have more to do in this one. I'm okay with the action throughout this movie. I don't think any of it's particularly remarkable. I kind of like the motorcycle chase fight at the end, but it's not special. It doesn't feel special.
It's not special. It was a little cheap, not cheap like visually, but just like Neo just kept shooting like air bubbles or shields or whatever.
I kind of like his Witcher art. Like
I don't mind 1 or 2 Witcher arts,
Yeah.
but you got to do something clever eventually. You gotta find a fun way to use a Witcher art. You gotta like throw a guy into a guy or something. I don't know. You gotta make the machines come up with turning people into bombs that are jumping out of buildings.
That was dark.
That was haunting. And then like turn into code when they hit the ground. That was cool. But Neo is just like, ard.
Yeah.
It's like, it felt like when you're playing a video game and you're like, I figured out this button.
Yeah. You're just spamming one type of attack.
I figured out how to ard.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that over and over and over
That's
again.
fair. Yeah.
So
You did remind me, though, of how haunting
that was cool.
the bot suicide bombers were. Holy shit. And the fact that some of them were in relationships with real humans who were not bots.
Yeah, that was a great choice to not have both the people in the room jump out the window. To be like, that's just a person in a tube whose husband just jumped out a window. Yeah. And they're like, my tube life.
And I think that is a clever take on what the new version of the Matrix would be, which is after the failure of so many inhabitants, or as the robots would view the batteries, during that last reboot or the reintroduction to the Matrix, that they would need to repopulate this world with bots. So I think that is a clever take on it, to be like, we've lost enough humans that we do not have the people to populate it, so we're populating it with bots.
So these people are in relationships with bots, like in real life, when people are kind of just don't know if they're talking to a bot or not on the internet. Sometimes you'll be like, I've gotten a message from a bot, and it's like send me your credit card.
Okay. I was thinking more video game bot, but I see.
I'm thinking of like chat bots who try to get your credit card and try to scam you, or catfish, or
yeah, it's not unlike that.
It's some kind of parallel there. There's something to say.
There's something, or is there?
Your lover could just jump out a window, but don't give them your credit card.
That's the theme of the movie.
I did it.
We fucking did it.
Plus or minus 2, you guys. Plus 2.
I feel like I've said most of the things that I need to say. What else do you have cooking in your chamber, haunting your old noodle about the Matrix Resurrections?
I have one final thing, and it's mostly a question for Andrew.
Oh, I was going to ask, is it positive or negative? But it's a question. It's a third
question for Andrew, and it's really just a conversation starter, because we cannot wrap up this podcast without asking Andrew how he feels about the return of the Merovingian.
This fucking weasel. I enjoy the
You thought you were going to get out of this conversation without talking about the Merovingian?
I enjoy the disrespect of calling him Merv.
Merv.
The Merv.
The Merv.
Cutting
the eye out.
New Agent Smith calling him the Merv is fun.
I
love that. New Agent Smith didn't really do anything, and there's no reason. Why they reintegrated him into the Matrix, I don't know. That kind of didn't really go anywhere. Same thing with SETI. I don't really...
we needed characters we were already familiar with, babe. That was the whole point of the film, apparently.
Random tangent. SETI at the end. When they're like unplugging Trinity or whatever. I found it so weird and unnecessary that she was a hologram in the real world. When we had a whole fucking plot line about these magnetic balls that the robots can inhabit and how they sneak in. And then it was just her projecting above Carrie-Anne Moss's loose body.
Really didn't feel like Morpheus had to sneak in there, right?
Absolutely,
no,
he did
I
not.
agree. Yeah, that was weird.
And they do the whole Ocean's 11 plot of like, here's how we sneak in. There's a tiny tube only big enough for Morpheus. And then just a little bit later, long enough that they think we forgot that, they're like, and then also this other robot and Jessica Chenwick do sneak through.
Even though we've established that they could only get in once and this robot cannot go in.
I was like, all right, you got away with it, you fucks. Have fun.
And also, I don't understand what this whole like logging into her brain thing did.
Yeah, it wasn't explained enough, but also who cares?
Who cares? The Merovingian,
though. I like that he has had a rough time.
He deserves
Fuck
a rough
him.
time.
You deserve a rough time.
No one's eating your cake anymore, buddy.
Yeah,
and apparently your wife left you.
She's gone.
I hope she's living a good life.
You know what? I wish her a modicum of success. And he is just having a rough go. And fuck him. I don't like that he slinks off at the end. He should get comeuppance.
Survived. That's
Why
bullshit.
did we let him go? Fuck this guy.
We should have shot him right in the head or the penis. Somewhere he should have been shot.
We should have fed him a cake that orgasmed him himself to death.
Oh, that would have been sweet
justice. He comes his pants
justice.
until he dies. That is his justice.
I really like, you're not as big a Monty Python fan as me, but he is basically in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. John Cleese does this like Frenchman on top of it, and he's like, I throw a poop at you.
Familiar with the Frenchman. And it's not,
It's very similar.
It's not that.
When he is just like running away, yelling insults while he's standing on top of that barrier, I'm like, this is just John Cleese and Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Huh.
Really, really capturing that essence.
Interesting. Yeah, it is that essence.
It is that essence. But yeah, I agree.
I'm glad to see he's a little derelict.
I'm glad he's derelict, but he needed to die.
Yeah.
We need to know the Merovingian will never be back in Matrix 5.
Because he's part of the reason why I approached this movie with cautious, like a certain level of skepticism and caution, because I looked at the IMDb for this movie before watching it, and it was like, Keanu Reeves is Neo. I'm like, of course.
Of course, absolutely.
Carrie Ann Moss is Trinity. I'm like,
Makes sense,
absolutely.
yep.
And then one of the top billed people was this fucking guy as the Merovingian. And I know that's not his name, but it should just say that, just this fucking guy. And I saw that, I'm like, Jesus Christ, you did not realize we all hate this man? But at least it was somewhat self-referential. And that was on the tail end of the meta-narrative to be like, everyone hates this fucking guy.
Mm-hmm. Weird they still didn't kill him, though.
It's weird that
Actually, that will be another big complaint I have, is that no one dies in this film, and I think that's a big detriment to it. Because I think The Matrix 1, the big part is when all the crew members die. We didn't lose a single crew member in the film. And I think that is a huge detriment to the movie and the stakes and how much you feel about the film.
Yeah, I do wonder what kind of push they had for the rating of this movie. And I actually don't even know what the rating of the original movies were. But the original movies
you pointed out they were all ours.
Oh, that's right. They were, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah,
and
the body horror made them ours. And then the full-on orgy sex scene.
Body horror, nudity, death, blood, whereas this is just they do one fuck. It does do
the one fuck.
The PG-13 or whatever the rating is for the one fuck.
You can still kill people on PG-13 though.
Yeah, but they turn to code. No human person is killed in this.
Oh, but no one on the ship, no one in reality died.
Right.
And you really need a couple deaths. You introduced enough characters that you could have killed some people, and you really didn't have any stakes on that one.
Yeah, you're right there.
So another. I hate to end on a negative, but another complaint of mine. Kill some people, guys. Have some guts.
Yeah, they could have killed somebody. They could have had some guts, but they didn't. I still thought it was fine, though. I still had a fun time. I mean, it's Keanu and Carrie just crushed it and did a terrific job, and it looks pretty. And I had fun with the self-referential stuff that wasn't the
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers
I
stuff.
would watch it again.
I would watch it again as well.
I would absolutely watch it again.
Yeah, I know we had some dunks here during the episode, but don't let that fool you. We had a good time and would watch it again.
Yeah, I think I would like to watch it. This is a fun one now, knowing what's happening for sure, to just kind of watch it fun.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, now I can just kind of watch it.
Let it
and
wash
not
over
be like,
you a little bit more.
Yeah, and not be like, ooh, who's in the Matrix now? Is Morpheus a computer or is he a person? What's happening? Just be like, oh, let's just watch it.
It's just fun.
Let's just
gonna
watch
have
it.
a little bit of fun. It's gonna be all right. Well, let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything we've discussed, what would you change about this movie if you could change anything? But before we do ask the final question, we want to remind you, as we do every week.
Every week, you guys.
We're not going to stop.
You can't stop us.
But you can fast forward this if you've already done it, which is please just leave a rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You hit follow, you leave a rating, you leave a review. You can just say noise, good job, thumbs up, or you can be as verbose and go on as long as you'd like. Whatever makes you happy. It helps us move up the charts, helps us find new listeners. Do it for the holidays. Do it for the new year. Do it for a few of the podcasts you listen to. Take 5 minutes out of your day and just be like, here are 3 or 4 podcasts I like. Boom, boom, boom. And then you don't have to worry about it ever, and you really helped out those podcasts.
And just in case you don't know, Apple Podcasts is not your only option. Podcast Addict allows reviews, and Spotify now allows you to leave a rating but not a word review.
Oh, so rate on Spotify.
You can give us 5 stars on Spotify. That would be great. Spotify's a huge platform.
Ooh.
They only have just added this.
And especially when a platform adds a new feature, you want to get in there.
You want to get in there early. We need we need a lot of stars early to get to the top. They genuinely get in there fast. It could really help us.
Game
we
changer.
love your stars on Spotify.
Chef's kiss.
And thank you to, oh my God, who messaged me about this? I'm so sorry. Someone rated us and said, hey, you can do it on Spotify now. And I don't have it open. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, shout out to the person, whoever they may be.
Who you are.
We appreciate your heads up on Spotify. Yes,
Whitney.
Whitney.
It was Whitney.
Thank you, Whitney, for the heads up on that one. That's
and
fantastic.
the rating on Spotify.
and the rating on Spotify. So do that. It's a free way to support the podcast. If you want to support the podcast monetarily and get cool exclusive episodes for doing so, you can head on over to our Patreon page. And if you're into The Matrix, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we did Matrix Revolutions as our Patreon exclusive earlier this month. Because so much hot shit came out simultaneously, on January 1st, New Year's Day, our episode on the Patreon page is on the new season of The Witcher. So we watched it. We had time to cover it, but we didn't have anywhere in the schedule to put it. So that's a Patreon exclusive available January 1st. Happy New Year's.
December was so wild. Witcher was one of our biggest episodes.
December was jacked.
Like, the fact that we didn't have time for Witcher is crazy. But enjoy, patrons. So yeah, Witcher Season 2, Matrix Episode 3, Movie 3, whatever you want to call it, whatever you're nasty, you can call it Revolutions.
Yeah.
They're all there on patreon.com/FromSuperheroes at the $10 level.
At the $10 hero level, and when you sign up, you can also cancel or change your level on any given month. So if you just want to check out that month, if you only have it in the budget 1 month, head on over, check it out, binge maybe some past episodes, have fun. If you can afford to stick around, stick around. But if you, the following month, need to cancel, need to go down to $1, maybe the next month you got more money in the budget and you can bump up a bit, you can change and move around. There's no penalties, no problem. Just hop on over, get what you want, contribute what you can, and then leave it if it's not in the budget. Take care of yourself first.
Take care of you, and then take care of us.
Patreon.com/FromSuperheroes. That's patreon.com/FromSuperheroes. And now let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
My change is one that I constantly do, but I am going to add stakes and urgency to this film. I don't like that we're just like, we need to get Neo and Trinity out for no particular reason. Everything was fine while they were in there. There's no war happening. Nothing's going on. So what I was interested in was that the machines are at war with each other for energy. And if they need energy, they need humans. So now the machines are looking for Io, and they're plucking people up and putting them back in the Matrix who have chosen to get out.
Oh, shit.
So they're looking for all the cities. There's multiple small cities, and they've attacked a few already. And they're like, if they find AO, that's the end. They're not going to kill us, though. They're putting us back in the Matrix. Because I feel like the first movies were Zion's getting wiped out. But this is, they're like plucking us up and putting us back in. So like we're trying to get Trinity and Neo out because that will destabilize the whole Matrix and we'll all pop back out. So just a small change, but like I think also a big change. Just adds a little bit more urgency to Io. Like, this is why we needed to get Neo out. This is why we need to get Trinity out. We need to destabilize the whole Matrix. We're losing people left and right. We can't let them find us, because you can't introduce this energy war and then be like, well, how are they getting energy? You need more people if they're dying in the pods.
Yeah.
So yeah, the machines are attacking the cities, and they're stealing people back into the Matrix, even though they've chosen to leave.
Fuck.
That's my big change.
I like that.
Thank you.
That's a scary world in that scenario to be like,
Yeah.
and then it's like, well, some of the robots have joined our side, some are neutral, and some are chaotic evil. Like
Yeah, so there's like fighting between robots. There's
Yeah.
people are getting snatched. It would be like more exciting and more tension filled, I think. Every time you go up to broadcast, you're risking like getting shoved back in the Matrix instead of dying, which is kind of scarier in some ways,
Interesting.
depending on your views. So yeah, people are getting shoved back in the Matrix against their will, even though the whole option is that you get a choice to leave. Oh, Andrew, what would you change?
I like yours. I'm on board for that. I think that that's fantastic. My big change is that and this movie is, as a movie that is doing a meta-narrative about itself, about what it has meant as a franchise, the impact that it's had, how hard it is to continue that story, and so on. It is doing a meta-narrative where the Matrix movies are a series of video games, and they have a lot to say about that and its impact on the creatives behind it, but nothing to say about the impact on the world that has played it. And I think that that is more important. Basically, my change is I want this movie to have something to say around the gross politics that have been co-opted by groups of people around the Matrix. And what I'm talking about is like the incels and terrible people who are like, we're red pillars. We love the Matrix and we get it. The fact that Elon Musk and Ivanka Trump have tweeted about we're red pillars and we get it. The fact that this, as a film franchise, has been co-opted by a very negative, hateful, terrible movement of terrorists and borderline terrorists. And as a film, this movie is like, The Matrix is a series of video games. And boy, we have a tough time writing them and cashing the checks getting paid to write them. There surely is nothing else to say about the creative impact of something as large as The Matrix. And as a film that wants to say a lot about rebellion, control, and choice, this is the exact opportunity for the Wachowskis, or for Lana Wachowski, I guess, to say something to the people who have incorrectly interpreted her artistic vision as something hateful, as something mean. And the movie even does the opposite of that at times, and I think is almost baiting hate clicks and encouraging these type of people to like it. Like, one thing that I think is actually kind of gross, and as the creator of The Matrix, you should know. If you don't, I'm not saying everyone should know this, but the fact that Trinity's husband is named Chad, and I know that seems like a small thing, is a highly problematic thing, because that is a big term in the incel community for traditionally attractive men. Who, like, incels are like, oh, she's with a Chad, and it's like, she's a bitch, she's with a Chad. And it's a very hateful, like, women are tricked into these relationships with, air quote, Chads, when they should be with us, video game nerds, and this type of thing. And it's basically like cuck and Chad are two things that no one should ever use sincerely and should only ever be sarcastically used. So there's a lot of, like, almost, it feels baity to a gross group of people who are going to co-opt this storyline to be about them. And I don't like that. I would have liked if this movie had something to say about the negative repercussions of what the film franchise had, but didn't intend to have.
I love that, because when I saw the trailer, I was actually, like, excited that the Wachowskis, or sorry, at least Lana, is kind of retaking back what they created. They're like, no, this was our thing we made. You don't get to co-opt it to mean whatever you want. But the movie doesn't have anything to say about the pills. It really is just like, one means you come out, one means you stay in. That's all they have to say about it. And there should be more than that. You're right. It's had such a huge impact on society. You took the time to dunk on Warner Brothers. Yeah. But you didn't take a moment to dunk on all of the very bad people who have negatively interpreted your creative IP. Not a good look. Not a good look.
And especially when, like, I'm not saying you have to do that, but if you're going to do a meta-narrative where your film trilogy is a video game trilogy in a world where it was in a, simulated world where it was a groundbreaking and has millions of fans and it's impossible to follow up, then, like, you can't, it's insane that you didn't address the negative impact and the consequences that film has had and who it's been co-opted by.
Yeah, definitely, because, like, a video game, has also crazy toxic fandoms. You can make the narrative changes. You can make the things to say. Yeah, I'm absolutely with you. That is a disappointment.
Yeah. So I would have. Yeah, that's my big change. Make a commentary, a meta commentary about toxic fandoms using the video game industry and using that as a form of control, and the toxic fandoms are actually the one who are keeping Neo oppressed and keeping people down. Yeah.
Really making my change look kind of minuscule.
I'm on board with yours, too.
All right, but, like, yours is, like, important.
Mine's lofty enough that I don't know how to execute it.
Ooh.
I'm not, like, I couldn't get in there and I couldn't get in the weeds and do this.
I could do mine.
You could do yours.
I could be like, and then a robot grabs Niobe, and Niobe's like, no!
I would need smarter, better writers and more talented people than me. With more lived experience to get in and do my change.
All right, but it's a great change.
Thank you.
It's a
Same
great
as yours. I'm down for it.
All right, well, we got good changes. It's a +2.
How about this? Trinity's also the equal lead character.
Oh, of course.
Let's both agree with that.
Yeah, because she can fucking fly.
Trinity's the goddamn co-lead.
She kicks NPH's ass.
Yes.
Wonderful. We can both agree on that.
Sweet. We did it.
We did it.
We did it.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom. That is going to be it for this week with Matrix Resurrections. Next week, we are going to be back, and we are going to be talking about Hawkeye.
The whole season of Hawkeye.
Whole season of Hawkeye. That finished up. And as a reminder, once again, a lot of great stuff came out simultaneously. January 1st, our Patreon exclusive episode is going to be on the new season of The Witcher, which is out and available now. But our public episode next week is going to be on Hawkeye, the full season. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can can reach me online at Ivimey, Ivimey.
Me? I'm at Words of Diana.
And both of us, we're at From Superheroes, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.